Most people believe strength comes from control, but true strength begins with acceptance. Not passive acceptance, not giving up, but the clear acknowledgement of what is happening in this moment. When the mind resists reality, it creates friction. That friction becomes stress, anger, anxiety, and exhaustion. The event itself is often neutral. The suffering is born from the sentence repeated inside the mind. This should not be happening. The moment you drop that sentence, the mind becomes lighter, sharper, more capable of action. Resistance wastes energy. When you argue with reality, reality does not change. Time does not reverse. People do not suddenly become who you want them to be. Situations do not bend to your expectations. All that changes is your inner state. The more you resist, the more scattered you become. An untrained mind reacts emotionally, seeking fairness, explanations, or blame. A trained mind sees clearly and asks a better question. Given what is happening, what is the correct response now? Acceptance is often misunderstood as weakness, but it is the foundation of strength. A fighter who denies the opponent's position will lose. A traveler who denies the weather will not reach the destination. In the same way, a person who denies reality cannot move forward. Acceptance places both feet on the ground. It removes fantasy. It removes illusion. From that grounded position, action becomes precise rather than desperate. The mind that accepts reality stops fighting imaginary battles. It stops replaying the past and resisting the present. It no longer wastes energy on what cannot be changed. Instead, that energy becomes available for adaptation. Adaptation is power. It allows you to adjust, to shift, to find openings where others see only obstacles. This is why calm individuals often appear stronger than reactive ones. They are not carrying the extra weight of inner conflict. When something unwanted happens, the first impulse is emotional reaction. The body tightens, the breath shortens. The mind looks for someone or something to blame. Acceptance interrupts this pattern. It creates a pause. In that pause, you regain authority over yourself. You stop being pushed by circumstances and begin to move intentionally within them. This pause is not hesitation, it is alignment. A disciplined acceptance of reality does not mean you like what is happening. It means you see it clearly. Clarity removes fear. Fear thrives in confusion, in imagined outcomes, in resistance to the present. When you accept what is, the mind stops projecting and starts observing. Observation leads to understanding. Understanding leads to strategy. Strategy leads to action that is calm, direct, and effective. Many people wait for life to become easier before they feel calm. The unbreakable mind becomes calm first. From calmness, difficulty becomes manageable. This is why acceptance must come before change. You cannot change what you refuse to see. You cannot improve what you deny. Reality is the training ground. Every challenge is information. Every setback is instruction. When you accept this, nothing feels personal and nothing feels wasted. The mind that accepts reality becomes flexible instead of rigid. Rigidity breaks under pressure. Flexibility adapts. Water does not argue with the shape of the river. It flows, adjusts, and continues forward. In the same way, acceptance allows you to move through life without unnecessary resistance. You stop demanding that the world conform to your expectations and instead refine your ability to navigate it. Over time, this practice reshapes your inner world. You stop being surprised by difficulty. You stop collapsing under disappointment. You begin to trust yourself, not because life is predictable, but because you know you can meet whatever appears. Acceptance strengthens your nervous system. It steadies your emotions. It creates an inner stillness that remains even when circumstances are unstable. When acceptance becomes a habit, mental strength stops being something you chase and becomes something you embody. The mind no longer fractures under pressure because it is no longer fighting what is. It stands firmly in the present moment, alert, grounded, and ready to act. The mind does not exist separately from the body. They are one system, constantly influencing each other. When the body is weak, restless, or undisciplined, the mind follows the same pattern. Thoughts become scattered, emotions become unstable, focus becomes difficult to maintain. This is why mental strength cannot be built only through thinking. It must be trained through deliberate use of the body. Movement with intention teaches the mind obedience. When you ask the body to move and it responds, a command is formed. Over time, this command becomes internal. The mind learns that decisions are followed by action. Many people think motivation comes first, but discipline comes before motivation. When the body moves despite resistance, the mind learns that excuses are optional, not commands. Controlled physical practice creates structure inside the mind. Repetition builds patience. Precision builds awareness. Endurance builds tolerance to discomfort. These qualities do not stay in the muscles. They rise into the mind and shape the way you face pressure in daily life. When you train the body consistently, the nervous system becomes calmer under stress. Breath becomes steady. Reactions slow down. The mind stops panicking and starts responding. Discipline is not about intensity. It is about consistency. Small, repeated acts of control teach the mind reliability. When you wake up and move even when you do not feel like it, the mind receives a clear message. Feelings do not decide actions. This separates strong individuals from fragile ones. A fragile mind waits to feel ready. A trained mind moves regardless of mood. Through physical discipline, you learn to stay present. When the body is under controlled strain, the mind cannot wander far. It is pulled into the moment. This presence becomes a skill. Later, when life applies pressure, the mind already knows how to stay here instead of escaping into fear or distraction. Presence is stability. Stability is power. Training the body also teaches humility. There is no place to hide during honest physical practice. Weakness becomes visible. Limitations are exposed. Instead of avoiding them, discipline asks you to face them daily. This confrontation removes arrogance and builds respect for process. You stop seeking shortcuts. You stop rushing results. You trust gradual progress. Breath is the bridge between body and mind. When movement is synchronized with breath, control deepens. Slow, steady breathing during exertion trains calmness under stress. The body may be challenged, but the breath remains controlled. This teaches the mind that difficulty does not require panic. Over time, this breathing pattern appears naturally during emotional pressure, arguments, setbacks, and uncertainty. The body also teaches endurance. Muscles burn. The heart works harder. The body asks you to stop. Each time you continue safely and consciously, the mind expands its threshold. What once felt unbearable becomes manageable. This expanded threshold carries into mental challenges. Stress feels lighter. Pressure feels familiar. The mind remembers that it has been here before and survived. Physical discipline removes excess energy that fuels anxiety. A stagnant body often creates a restless mind. Movement clears this restlessness. It grounds you. It brings you back into your physical presence. When the body is engaged, the mind stops inventing problems. It becomes simpler, clearer, more direct. Over time, disciplined movement becomes a form of meditation. The repetition quiets internal noise. Awareness sharpens. Ego softens. You are no longer training to look strong but to become steady. The body becomes a tool for self-mastery rather than self-expression. Through this process, the mind learns order, restraint, and resilience. A person who trains the body with intention develops inner authority. They know they can act even when it is difficult. They know they can remain steady under pressure. This confidence is not loud. It is quiet and grounded. It does not depend on praise or external validation. It comes from lived experience, repeated daily through disciplined movement. The mind naturally seeks comfort because comfort feels safe, familiar, and effortless. But what feels safe does not make you strong. Comfort dulls awareness and weakens resilience. When life becomes difficult, a comfort-trained mind collapses because it has never learned how to endure. Mental strength is not built by avoiding discomfort, but by meeting it willingly, again and again. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is a teacher. It exposes attachment, impatience, and fear. When you avoid discomfort, you avoid growth. Each time you choose what is easy over what is necessary, the mind learns avoidance as a habit. Over time, this habit becomes fragility. A fragile mind needs perfect conditions to function. A trained mind functions in imperfect conditions. Choosing discomfort does not mean seeking pain without purpose. It means stepping into resistance with awareness. It means doing what needs to be done even when the mind complains. Waking up when the body wants to sleep. Sitting still when the urge is to distract. Speaking the truth when silence feels safer. These moments shape the nervous system and expand mental capacity. When you stay with discomfort, something important happens. The mind realizes that discomfort is temporary. Sensations rise, peak, and fall. Urges appear and fade. Fear speaks loudly and then loses its grip. This observation breaks the illusion that discomfort must be escaped. The mind learns that it can remain present without being harmed. Comfort creates dependency. Discomfort creates independence. A person who constantly seeks comfort becomes dependent on external conditions to feel stable. Temperature, mood, approval, convenience all start to matter too much. When these conditions are not met, the mind becomes irritated and reactive. Choosing discomfort removes this dependency. It teaches the mind to generate stability internally. Every time you voluntarily choose something difficult, you reclaim authority over yourself. You prove that impulses do not control you. This is not about force, it is about clarity. You see the urge to avoid, acknowledge it, and act anyway. Over time, this strengthens self-trust. You begin to trust that you will not abandon yourself when things become uncomfortable. Discomfort sharpens focus. When the body or mind is challenged, attention naturally narrows. Distractions lose their pull. The present moment becomes unavoidable. This presence is training. It prepares you for moments of pressure where clarity is required. A mind accustomed to comfort scatters under stress. A mind accustomed to discomfort becomes precise. There is also humility in discomfort. It strips away the image you have of yourself. Titles, excuses, and stories lose their power when you are facing something hard. You meet yourself honestly. This honesty builds integrity. You stop pretending and start improving. Growth becomes real because it is no longer based on comfort or appearance. Avoiding discomfort delays strength. Seeking it builds resilience. Life will introduce difficulty whether you want it or not. Voluntary discomfort prepares you for involuntary challenges. When hardship arrives, it does not feel foreign. The body and mind recognize the terrain. Instead of panic, there is familiarity. Discomfort also teaches patience. Progress through difficulty is slow and demanding. There are no shortcuts. This patience reshapes how you relate to time. You stop rushing outcomes and focus on process. The mind becomes steady rather than anxious. You learn to stay engaged without constant reward. As discomfort becomes part of your daily practice, fear loses authority. Fear thrives on avoidance. When you move toward what is uncomfortable, fear weakens. The mind learns that courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act without obeying it. A comfort-seeking mind remains dependent, reactive, and fragile. A discomfort-trained mind becomes adaptable, calm, and strong. Strength does not come from protecting yourself from difficulty. It comes from meeting difficulty with awareness. discipline, and willingness. The mind produces thoughts constantly, just as the lungs produce breath. Most people live as if every thought is a command, every inner voice a truth that must be followed. This is the root of mental instability. Thoughts appear automatically, shaped by memory, fear, desire, and habit. They are not you. They are events happening within you. The moment you believe every thought, you surrender your inner authority. Observation creates distance. When you watch a thought instead of entering it, its power weakens. It can still appear, but it no longer controls direction. The mind becomes like a river, and thoughts become objects floating past. You do not need to stop the river. You only need to stop jumping into it. This simple shift changes everything. Attachment to thoughts creates suffering. When a thought is labeled as mine, it becomes personal. Doubt becomes identity. Fear becomes character. Anger becomes justification. By observing without attachment, you allow thoughts to arise and pass without defining you. This does not suppress thinking. It frees awareness from being trapped inside it. Most inner conflict is created by resistance to thoughts. People try to fight them, replace them, or escape them. This struggle strengthens them. What you resist, you feed. Observation does the opposite. It removes fuel. When a thought is seen clearly, without judgment or reaction, it naturally loses intensity. Through observation, patterns reveal themselves. You begin to notice which thoughts repeat, which situations trigger them, and how the body reacts. This awareness is intelligence. It allows you to understand yourself without criticism. Understanding replaces confusion. Confusion creates fear. Clarity dissolves it. The practice of observation trains patience. Thoughts often demand immediate reaction. They push urgency, emotion, and drama. By not obeying them, you slow down the inner tempo. You give yourself time to choose. Choice is freedom. Without observation, there is only reaction. Observing thoughts also strengthens emotional stability. Emotions are closely tied to thought patterns. When you step back from thoughts, emotions soften. You feel them without drowning in them. This creates balance. You remain human, but you are no longer overwhelmed by every internal movement. This skill is developed through stillness. In moments of quiet, thoughts become louder because there is no distraction. This is not a problem, it is training. You sit, breathe, and watch. You notice the urge to judge, to fix, to escape. Instead of obeying, you remain present. Over time, this presence becomes natural. Observation creates inner space. In this space, insight appears. You begin to see which thoughts are useful and which are habitual noise. Useful thoughts are clear, direct, and grounded in reality. Habitual noise is repetitive, emotional, and often rooted in fear. When you can distinguish between them, decision-making becomes easier. The untrained mind is pulled in many directions by thought. The trained mind chooses direction. This does not require controlling thought, but understanding it. When you understand something, you no longer fear it. When you no longer fear thought, it loses its grip. Detachment from thought does not make you cold or indifferent. It makes you stable. You can care deeply without losing balance. You can think clearly without becoming trapped in overthinking. You can feel emotions without being consumed by them. As observation deepens, identity shifts. You stop defining yourself by passing mental states. You recognize yourself as the awareness that experiences them. This awareness is steady. Thoughts change, moods change, situations change. Awareness remains when thoughts are no longer obeyed automatically. Inner silence begins to appear between them. This silence is not emptiness, but clarity. From this clarity, action becomes deliberate rather than impulsive. You move with intention instead of compulsion. The mind becomes a tool rather than a master. Life constantly tests your ability to respond. Words, actions, situations, and unexpected events arrive without warning. What determines strength is not what happens, but how you react internally. Most people live in a state of automatic reaction. Something happens, emotion rises, words spill out, and only afterward does awareness return. By then, damage is often already done. Reaction is fast, emotional, and unconscious. It is driven by habit and impulse. When someone reacts, they surrender control to external triggers. A single comment can change their mood. A small inconvenience can ruin their day. This is not power. This is dependency. Mastery begins when you create space between stimulus and response. That space is built through awareness. The moment something triggers you, there is a brief window before reaction takes over. In that window, you can breathe, feel the body, and observe the emotion without acting on it. This pause is small, but it contains freedom. The ability to pause under pressure is one of the strongest mental skills a person can develop. Emotions are not the problem. Unexamined reactions are. Anger, fear, and frustration are natural responses, but acting from them without awareness leads to regret. When you observe emotion, instead of expressing it immediately, it begins to settle. The intensity reduces. Clarity returns. From clarity, you can choose a response aligned with your values rather than your impulse. Mastering reaction does not mean suppression. Suppression stores emotion and creates internal tension. Mastery means allowing emotion to exist without letting it dictate behavior. You acknowledge what you feel without becoming it. This balance prevents emotional buildup while maintaining self-control. The breath plays a crucial role in this process. When triggered, the breath often becomes shallow and fast. By consciously slowing the breath, you signal safety to the nervous system. This shift brings the body out of fight or flight and back into regulation. A regulated body supports a clear mind. A clear mind supports intentional response. Many conflicts escalate not because of the situation itself, but because of unmanaged reactions. Words spoken in anger cannot be taken back. Actions taken in frustration often create consequences far greater than the original trigger. A person who masters reaction protects their energy, their relationships, and their direction. Control over reaction also builds inner confidence. You begin to trust yourself under pressure. You know that no matter what happens, you will not lose yourself. This trust creates calm. Calm changes how others perceive you. People sense stability. Stability commands respect without force. Reaction feeds the ego. It seeks to defend, prove, or dominate. Response serves purpose. When you respond, you are not trying to win an emotional exchange. You are choosing the most effective action. Sometimes that action is silence. Sometimes it is firmness. Sometimes it is withdrawal. The strength lies in choice, not expression. Training this skill requires daily practice. Small irritations become training opportunities. Delays, criticism, misunderstandings all offer a chance to pause and observe. Each time you choose response over reaction, you reinforce self-mastery. The nervous system learns a new pattern. Over time, calm becomes your default state. A reactive mind feels constantly attacked. A responsive mind feels grounded. One lives in defense, the other in clarity. Reaction narrows perception. Response widens it. With wider perception, you see consequences, timing, and intention more clearly. Mastery of reaction also deepens self-respect. You no longer act in ways that contradict your values. You stop apologizing for words you did not mean. You stop explaining actions you regret. Life becomes cleaner, simpler, and more aligned. When reaction is mastered, external chaos loses its power. Situations may still be intense, but they do not control you. You remain steady in movement and speech. This steadiness becomes a form of strength that does not need to announce itself. Most people fear being alone because silence removes distraction. In solitude, there is no audience, no validation, no noise to hide behind. What remains is the self unfiltered and exposed. This is why many avoid being alone, even when surrounded by people. They mistake loneliness for solitude and weakness for independence. Standing alone does not mean rejecting others. It means not needing others to confirm your worth. When approval becomes necessary, direction becomes unstable. Choices shift to match expectations. Principles bend to avoid rejection. The mind becomes divided, pulled between what feels true and what feels acceptable. Inner certainty dissolves when external validation becomes the compass. Walking your path requires courage. There will be moments when your values isolate you. Not everyone will understand your discipline, your silence, or your refusal to follow common habits. This isolation is not punishment, it is alignment. When you act in harmony with your principles, even if alone, inner conflict fades. The untrained mind fears separation because it associates belonging with safety. From early life, acceptance often determines survival. That pattern carries into adulthood, even when it no longer serves. Learning to stand alone requires rewiring this association. Safety is no longer found in numbers, but in self-trust. Self-trust is built through consistency. When you keep promises to yourself, confidence grows quietly. You begin to rely on your own judgment. The opinions of others become information rather than authority. This shift changes how you move through the world. You listen without submitting. You consider without obeying. Solitude reveals truth. Without external input, thoughts and emotions rise clearly. This can be uncomfortable at first. Doubts surface. Unresolved fears speak louder. But staying present through this discomfort strengthens awareness. Over time, the mind settles. What remains is clarity. From clarity, certainty forms. A person with inner certainty does not seek attention. Their energy is contained. Their actions are deliberate. They do not rush to explain themselves or justify their choices. Silence becomes a form of confidence. It communicates that approval is not required for direction. Standing alone also builds resilience. When you are not emotionally dependent on others, loss and rejection lose their destructive power. Relationships are chosen rather than clung to. This creates healthier connections. You can give without fear of abandonment and receive without losing yourself. Many confuse independence with isolation. True independence allows connection without attachment. You can be close without being controlled. You can care deeply without sacrificing your center. This balance comes only from knowing who you are when no one is watching. The path of self-mastery is often lonely because it demands responsibility. Blame cannot be outsourced. Progress cannot be credited to others. When things go wrong, there is no group to hide behind. This responsibility sharpens the mind. It forces honesty. It removes excuses. Honor certainty grows when actions align with values consistently. Each aligned decision reinforces identity. Over time, this identity becomes stable. Criticism loses its sting. Praise loses its pull. You remain steady regardless of reaction from the outside. Standing alone requires patience. Results are not immediate. Validation may never come. This is where most people turn back. Those who continue discover something deeper than approval: peace. A peace that does not depend on agreement or recognition. When you are comfortable standing alone, presence changes. You move slowly. You speak when necessary. You act without urgency. Others may sense strength without understanding its source. That strength comes from not needing to be seen, heard, or confirmed. The mind that can stand alone becomes difficult to manipulate. Fear tactics lose effectiveness. Social pressure weakens. Trends pass without pulling you. You remain rooted while the world shifts around you. Inner certainty does not shout. It does not argue. It does not compete. It simply remains. And in remaining, it creates a foundation that does not crack under isolation, disagreement, or silence. Mental unbreakability is not something you are born with, and it is not something you find outside yourself. It is built through daily alignment with reality, discipline, and awareness. It grows when you stop resisting what is, when you train your body to steady your mind, when you choose discomfort over ease, and when you learn to watch your thoughts instead of obeying them. It strengthens when you pause before reacting and when you are willing to stand alone without losing your direction. This path is quiet. There are no shortcuts, no applause, no instant results. Progress happens internally before it ever becomes visible. The world may not notice when your mind becomes stronger, but you will feel it in moments of pressure, uncertainty, and challenge. Where there was once panic, there is calm. Where there was confusion, there is clarity. Where there was dependence, there is inner certainty. A mentally unbreakable person is not free from difficulty. They are free from being controlled by it. They remain steady while circumstances change, grounded while emotions rise, and clear while others react. This is not about becoming hard or closed, but about becoming stable, aware, and self-directed. When the mind is trained in this way, nothing external has the power to break it.